welcome to the show.
Hi, Nitin. I'm very glad to be here today. Thanks for having me join you.
Absolutely, Nicole, and I am thrilled that you're on the show. I think we'll have a great discussion, and I think our viewers will get to learn from your experience shares.
Wonderful. I'm excited.
Excellent, Nicole. So, Nicole, for those watching or listening in who may not be as familiar with you, could you please tell everyone about who you are, your background, and what you do?
Absolutely. So I'm the director of customer lifecycle and insights for a leading cybersecurity firm, and I lead our success programs office. And the remit of the success programs office is really to design and optimize the delivery of our customer experiences. So we're focused on developing internal processes and also rolling out tools that our teams can use to optimize our customers' journey and the achievement of their business goals.
Thank you, Nicole. That's great. So, Nicole, for in your everyday life, when your leadership comes to you and says, "Great job, Nicole," what are they typically relying on you for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the best way to answer this is kind of to refer back to a couple of our core values that we have within our company. And one of those is really the customer first mentality. And so our CEO has the expectation that as we work through our projects and our initiatives, we're stepping outside of ourselves essentially and looking at things from the customer perspective. So that requires a lot, of data gathering as well, looking at voice of customer, gathering feedback from customer-facing employees, and really taking a critical look at our practices through the lens of our customers, so both external and internal customers for us. So it's, important too that as we're doing that, we're thinking through, doing the right thing. So that's something that our firm is very focused on. And that might be, unpopular at the onset or something that seems extraordinarily daunting. So how do we, work through those circumstances as a team and, go through the process of continuous improvement? And I think that really leads me to, the second value that we really focus on within our organization. And that's, the continuous improvement value. And we have a culture across our organization of openness to criticism, willing to hear and understand and ask questions about what's not working well, and really internalize that. The end goal for us is really not perfection. It's getting to that next step, doing things better than what we do today. So sometimes, we can't, take a bite out of a huge watermelon, but, what are we going to do to take that next step? One of the phrases that I hear quite a lot as we're collaborating is, related to crawl, walk, and run, and that analogy of a baby and understanding, how they get to running that marathon or sprint. And I think it's, highly applicable in our case, because we really need to understand with whatever process or experience we're trying to deliver to the customer, where we are in the maturity of that life cycle, and what we can expect to be reasonable to deliver. What can we deliver in the short term? What can we deliver in the longer term? What is that going to take of our resources? And when, quite frankly, do we think we can realistically get there? So I do think there's a lot of realism in how we look at what the current state looks like and how we approach future state.
So, Nicole, that's great. I love when you talk about the current state versus the future state. When you are guiding your internal teams in going from the current state to the future state, can you talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges that you are faced with, that you see your internal or external clients be faced with
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things, in a smaller scale, just within my team itself, is really avoiding the analysis paralysis per se, and the thinking through of every possible scenario that could occur, and having a solution and answer in place for all of those scenarios. We definitely don't want to shortcut things. We don't want to move too quickly and neglect something that's of high importance. But at the same time, we're trying to move quickly. We're trying to move in an agile manner, and we're trying to make adjustments along the way. So it can be challenging at times to strike that balance between getting that improvement out there in the market per se, and then also thinking through enough scenarios deeply enough to make sure that we don't make a critical error.
That's great, Nicole. I love your usage of the phrase analysis paralysis. That is a challenge I often see a lot of our clients face. And, that is rampant in the industry as well. A lot of times we as researchers, get focused on solving a research challenge to help our internal or external stakeholders overcome. And often what I've seen is with a lot of our clients or with a lot of peers, there is a lot of emphasis that we as researchers put on the how. How are we going to solve this problem, that's been presented to us? As researchers, that's our job, right? We need to solve it in the best way possible. But sometimes what I often find that I just wanted to highlight for our viewers as well is a lot of good data and insights come from, when you're trying to solve a business challenge or a research challenge. But then the end result sometimes, very frequently actually, is this whole analysis paralysis. A lot of data comes out, and sometimes it's a challenge with leadership. And I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but a lot of my clients tell me that, often they spend a lot of time, resources in solving a research problem, and they produce a great deck and good insights, and then nothing gets done about it. It just becomes another deck on someone's desk. I don't know. Have you ever had that situation?
Yes, and I think there's two key considerations there. I do think there's, momentum and velocity that we need to take into account. So, as the leadership team is focused in on a particular area, or a problem happens that surfaces a concern, that's when it is important to act fairly quickly and, continue to communicate, to continue to keep that issue on the radar and work through the solution, a solution, as quickly as you possibly can. Because I think what happens is then the next problem of the day comes up and the focus becomes on another issue. And if you're coming forward with what I would consider to be a stale, problem at that point, it may still be very relevant, but it's a little bit stale in terms of what's going on with the organization, what escalations have we recently heard about, et cetera, et cetera. What is the direction that we're headed and focused? That's where I think you can kind of be continuously, chasing, trying to get out and get, the backing to proceed, right? So if you act quickly enough, then you'll be in that right window of timing and you can proceed. And then if you get some headwinds and you have some wins out of that, then you have something to build upon. And again, may not be perfect in the first iteration, but you've got something out there, something working, you've established some additional credibility in the process. And the other thing that I just wanted to mention too is really maintaining a good parking lot, right? So if we haven't solved the problem or the issue, and it still continues to persist in the customer's experience, it's going to cycle back around again. And we need to have that information, stored and at the ready and be able to access it and prioritize it going forward. So we do planning cycles for our regular projects, and I'm constantly relifting up those parking lot items, assessing them, trying to determine if it's the right time to bring it forward and to present it as a potential upcoming initiative.
Those are wonderful nuggets of wisdom, Nicole, and thank you for sharing those. Agility, moving quickly, and I loved your parking lot example. I think those are perfect. I also want to add to this, for our viewers. Typically, my experience has been that when these analysis paralysis situations occur, often they can be tied back to not having spent enough time on the impact of the project. And we define impact as having multiple components. Impact is really the what and the why. Why are we doing this? What is driving the need for this project, right? Within the what and why, what we guide our clients and what I would like to, also guide our viewers through this discussion is, when you're approached by a challenge from your leadership or your internal or external stakeholders, we as researchers are so trained to get on the how quickly, how will we solve this, that we often drive by quickly from the what and the why. And I think that is a place where we as researchers need to spend more time with our internal and external stakeholders in really understanding what is driving the need for this project. What does the end look like? How will internal, external stakeholders and the leadership view the project to be a success at the end? More importantly, how will this move the needle for the business? What business impact will this have? And typically, business impacts can be narrowed down to few key items. Typically, it's either improving sales, improving revenue, profitability. It's either improving customer satisfaction, or one or two other key KPIs. And what I would like to guide our viewers is focus on that business impact, get alignment from your leadership on, is this the business impact that we are striving for? And once you have that narrowed down, then do the next step of converting that into a financial impact. So what I mean by that is, well, if the end goal of this project is we need to improve sales, well, then go deeper into it. By how much? 10%, 5%, 20%? And what does that mean in dollar amounts? If the goal is to reduce costs, again, by how much? 20%, 30%? What is that dollar amount, right? And the reason I stress on breaking it down to a dollar amount is because at the end of the day, every research project is an investment. There is a dollar amount associated with research budgets with each project. So why not have a clarity on, well, if we spend $1 or $2 on this project, how much are we supposed to get at the end of it, right? Doing it this way, Nicole, what I've seen happen, and you probably are aware of this, but more for our viewers, what I've seen happen is having that clarity on the business and the financial impact then becomes the guiding light or the North Star for each project, right? And so then when you're designing a project, you know how it is where we invite questions from different stakeholders and every question is important. And there is sometimes, politics, and we have to ask this question because so-and-so wanted this clarity. But that is often what leads to that analysis paralysis stage, because then everything looks good. Everything looks like it's a must-have. So if the impact is clearly defined up front, then the research gets designed through that filter or that lens, right? And And what happens then is it also gets buy-in very quickly from leadership, because now everyone's on board on, okay, this project is being done for X business objective, right? Another thing that we like to define impact as is personal impact. And this is something often researchers overlook, which is when you get a research brief from internal, external stakeholders, a question that we often guide our clients to ask their stakeholders is, okay, so you've helped us understand how you will look at this project being successful. Does this have a personal impact on you in any way? And sometimes people are a little surprised when I ask them this question in my consultations.
Mhm.
And the reason for that question is, what we're trying to uncover is, how big is the personal impact for this? Sometimes stakeholders are like, no, there's no personal impact on me. Okay, great. But what I'm really looking for, and what I encourage our viewers to do, is look for that personal impact when there is a strong one. For example, we were doing something for a client recently. I asked them this question as part of our onboarding process. And they said, well, I was hired to do this. My job depends on this project. The company is really relying on me for this to be successful. That personal impact is so critical, Nicole, because what happens is, once you get that, you are also making your stakeholders feel heard, right? And then they are buying in. They then realize, oh, this project is really being done for me in a way, right? And so what happens is, they then become loyalists for the project. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but for a lot of our clients, they share with me that once the project comes out, comments that they get are like, oh, you didn't tell me anything new, or they don't act on it. But if you focus on that personal impact upfront along with the business, well, guess what? Not only do these stakeholders then become your champions internally, but then when the research comes out, the research then gets designed for them, right? Not just for the business. And when the research comes out, they're banging on your door for the results. They want to act on it. They want to execute on it. They want the organization to act on it. So then it no longer becomes, your fight as the research guide. Then they are really, acting on it, working on it, the way you would want them to. So I'm sorry I went off on a tangent, but as you were talking about analysis paralysis, I really wanted our viewers to get the benefit of how they can also avoid having analysis paralysis situations.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there were a couple of points that you mentioned that really resonated with me. And one was the impact portion. And I wholeheartedly agree with defining the impact. I mean, even before that, defining the problem statement well, which I think is something that a lot of people struggle with, exactly, what is precisely the problem, and what is it causing? And then, from that, you can determine what the impact of the project could be. And then I think, what some of us struggle with too is having, the tools and the access to the financial data to accurately, prepare those impact statements and, get the numbers to a point where they're, reasonably accurate. I think, there's always elements to forecasting that can be very challenging to be 100% accurate, but get us in the range that's both believable and deliverable. And so in cases where you don't have access to that data, or aren't able to prepare that level of detail in terms of numbers, I think many times people say, well, I can't do it, so I'll skip that step. And my recommendation would be, don't skip the step. Let's figure out how you can articulate that impact, absent those numbers or with a good, range, and still understanding what the priority of the project is. We had one recently where we had some competing priorities. And when you talk about personal impact to stakeholders, it kind of segues into that, right? Where our initial intention was to deliver impact reporting of, and this is not from a financial perspective, but in terms of what we're delivering for with our customers for business outcomes, to be able to record that and to be able to deliver that in a reportable fashion to our leadership team. And so that was the primary ask when the project got generated, was visibility into this. We knew that people, our CSMs were actually executing it, but we didn't have a good way to show that as an organization. And then we brought in the customer success managers to help support and shape the project in a way that would also be useful to them. So in my mind, it was a secondary benefit to provide, tools for them that would be helpful and allow them to, help customers progress in a more easy fashion. And so those two items became competing priorities in the decisions that we were making and the trade-offs that we had to make. And there were some very tough conversations in there to say, well, CSM, I may be asking you to do more, and I may not be making things more efficient for you in this way, because we have to do that to get to the reporting that we're looking for. So I think the personal impact can be a tricky one, especially when you're working with a large group of people. And you may make some assumptions that because they're part of the same team, that the benefit would apply to them universally, when in fact that's not the case. It's a very individualized benefit, or half the group might feel there is no benefit. So then we've got the extra added, adoption component that we need to follow up on to make sure that we're reinforcing what we've released.
I love your comments, Nicole. I think they are spot on. And I think for our viewers, what I will also add is, like you said, when you go down this line of questioning and understanding the impact and the what and the why, yes, tough conversations are part of the job. But, as researchers, our job really is to guide our internal and external stakeholders, right? And in the course of asking these questions, if it is determined that a project really does not have a strong business impact, or or doesn't have a strong personal impact, whatever it is, then a part of our job as an organization's internal research arm is to sometimes say no to projects, or to guide people internally on, look, we don't have unlimited resources, and we would rather focus on XYZ because of the much stronger impact that it will have, versus being order takers and saying yes to everything, and then not being able to do true justice to justify our existence. So within an organization. So I think your comment, that's why I said that your comments are spot on, because yes, as researchers, we should be prepared for, and we should strive for those tough conversations. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we are there to really not just guide the organization, but also ensure that projects that get done truly matter. And when they do get done, then they do get acted upon. So perfect. I love this. I love your commentary. I love this discussion. Moving on to my next question then. From, you talked about understanding customer journeys. Can you please share for our viewers, a recent customer journey project that you executed? If you can talk about what drove you to focus on the customer journey, what steps did you take, and what was the end result or impact for your client or organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the projects that we executed was related to our customers' onboarding process. So we're a B2B SaaS firm, and we have a number of different internal teams that engage with our customers, particularly early on. So at that point where they're closing the contract with us and then getting to what we would consider to be their first time to value. There are quite a number of teams that they have to interact with, and there's, different processes for them to get set up for a support case submission, for training, for their initial services engagement, et cetera, et cetera. So what we were finding is that this process was complicated, in the minds of our customers, and oftentimes wasn't either as seamless as it possibly could be for the customer, or it was, taking longer amounts of time than what, was desirable for them. And we were looking for ways to be more efficient and move the process along. So we decided that we would embark upon a customer journey mapping effort to better understand all the involvement from the different teams with the customer. So we did a front stage, backstage service mapping exercise. We did that with our customer-facing internal team members who were nominated by their respective department leads. And we were able to capture what that just customer journey looked like. We're able to identify pain points and then bring back some actionable insights that we were able to recommend, and some of which, we rolled out subsequent to that project. And I think really what we learned from that is, the deep level of complexity that we have in our organization with the number of products that we offer, with the engagement from our channel partners, which varies significantly depending upon what type of partner they are and how they're interacting with the customer. And it really, I think, sheds some light on how we're going to need to customize the journey moving forward and how we need to focus on our scaling effort. So looking into tools that can support, scaling of our journey mapping and the reporting of these opportunities. Also looking at internal team visibility. So all these teams I mentioned were using disparate systems. They did not know, what the customer had accomplished, what they had not done. Were they ready for the call that we were about to have? Did they have all of the, infrastructure in place or, set up in place going into the conversation? So from there, we look to implement dashboards, where we would bring that visibility to say, yes, the customer check has done, this milestone, that milestone, this milestone. Still a work in progress. But we also, looked at a customer lens for our metrics and how we were able to drive, that time to value that I mentioned previously, and underlying, intermediary steps that the customer would take. How can we measure that? So we set the framework up for the measurement and working with our BI team to be able to see that more comprehensively and expose that to the leadership team. So we can zero in on areas which were the most problematic.
That's a great experience, shared, Nicole, and there's a lot of gold over there. I'll just double click on one aspect for our viewers. I love that not only was this done in a very holistic way, involving different teams, that's the right way to do it. Also, I loved you talking about the pain points that you uncovered. For our viewers who may not be familiar with journey work, that is one of the big things that often comes out from journey work, is finding not just the different journey stages that are involved, but also different pain points. These pain points, Nicole, as you know, they're nothing more than moments of truth, as we call it, in the journey vernacular. These are key moments that often connect one journey stage to another. And what happens with moments of truth are, if an organization knows them, focuses on them, then they become what we call as peak points, where they elevate the customer's experience in with that organization as they move from one stage of their journey to another. But when an organization is unaware of their importance or unaware of their existence, then they transform into pain points, which is what you found. And the problem with these pain points is, a lot of times as a consulting shop, we have to guide our clients into a mindset that the customer is not part of your business journey. You are part of the customer's journey. And these pain points are really critical because if you don't address them as an organization, then they are also catalysts for the customer to move on into the next stage of their journey, holding someone else's hand. These pain points, Nicole, also have business impact associated with them. Earlier on, we were talking about how sometimes it's tough to measure the financial impact of projects and how sometimes having that data is tough. Well, in journey efforts, when we encounter these pain points, often what we do is we go into a second layer of questioning with customers in asking them, okay, you've indicated that you're experiencing a pain point in this stage. What is the effect of this pain point on you? What do you do? Do you stop doing business with us? Do you buy more from a competitor? Do you reduce your order with us? What do you do? What is this pain point? What's the enormity of this for you, right? And at that stage, Nicole, customers will tell us, well, it's so hard to do this with you guys. And so what I do is I just reduce my order with you or I stop buying from you, on this, right? And so, well, we then ask the customer, well, how much were you planning to spend or how much did you spend with a competitor as a result of this pain point? But what we really aiming to get is some financial information from the customer, right? Now imagine having this financial information that is tied to the pain point across all journey stages throughout the customer's journey, right? So we're capturing the pain point, we're capturing the financial impact of that pain point on the business, and we're also asking the customer, well, what would you like us to do to remove this pain point? If you can tell us, or what are you expecting from us, right? Now, as researchers, imagine presenting those insights to your leadership. Here are the pain points. This is what customers are doing when they encounter this from a financial standpoint. And this is the corrective action we need to take. I'll give you a real world example without naming any clients. We did this for a client, a major manufacturing client of ours. And we came back and we added up the leakages they were having in their business as a result of this pain point. And our tally was like $70 million, across the board. And the client said, well, we need to go check this with our financial data because yes, we appreciate this came from customers, but we need to check it, fine tune it. Seems like a big number, right? So they did their own financial modeling. We didn't have any access to their financial data, of course. And they came back and said, well, we had to trim it down to, 50 million. And I was chuckling and I was laughing. And my client was laughing too. And I said, okay, so, you spent 100,000 on this project with us, right? And you're coming back saying, okay, we've identified $50 million that you've been leaving on the table. How do you feel about that? He's like, Nitin, are you kidding me? I love it. And he was telling me that, when he presented the insights to his leadership, I mean, he was like, Nitin, you could hear a pin drop in that room. People were like aghast. They were like, what? We're leaving so much on the table? Like, they were like corrective action was being planned in that research briefing. Like they were like so on top of it, right? So I wanted to ensure that our viewers understood that that's the benefit of uncovering these pain points, doing these journey efforts the way you did it, Nicole, and then, having that financial impact top of mind, that business impact top of your mind, because then when you go tell the story internally, your reception is very different from, well, we should do this because 20% of our customers said this.
Yes, absolutely. I love tacking on the customer in interviews to the process. There's so many insights that you can get from that. And I think we get a little bit stuck on, oh, we know what the issues are. We've read whatever online resources we can get our access to. We've read the feedback from the voice of customer, but almost never do you get that answer from the customer in those types of surveys and feedback of, oh, I would have bought this from you, or I would have purchased more licenses or renewed this module that I didn't renew, et cetera, et cetera. And so asking that question directly is beautiful. I love it. And, I like to think about things often, this is from working in the insurance industry in the past, but we were always talking about, frequency and severity. And I think that's a key component, right, to the impact analysis as well, is, how big is this problem? And those questions that you are asking the customer help you identify that. How big is this problem? What is the impact of this problem? And then also, how many customers is this impacting? And that's something that I think we can easily do internally to understand, but it doesn't get done very often. And that's why, in a lot of these venues, what you're talking about is there's a lot of noise that's brought up. What happened with the customer yesterday? This one customer called in and they had this pain point. Well, how prevalent is that pain point? Is that happening to everyone? Is that a subset of our customers? And how do we quantify that and put the numbers to it?
Absolutely, Nicole. You've hit it on the head, and it also helps prioritize internal improvement efforts. So that's the end goal of that. Nicole, I know we're almost at the end of our time, so I wanted to ask you one final question. In the future, if you had to repeat this journey project or do a different one, is there anything that you would do different to improve?
Yeah, well, now that I've talked to you, we're definitely going to tack on the customer feedback portion and the impact analysis. But in addition to that, I really think we would spend more time, not just the impact analysis of the project, but the level setting at the beginning of the project and saying, this is where we're going to draw our boxes. This is what the intent of the effort is and what we're trying to get out of it. And, how we're going to approach the parking lot effort that we talked about, right? So I think, it tends to happen that we come and we say, we're going to have, I'm talking a lot about fruit today, but we're going to talk about this apple. And then suddenly someone is off, complaining about how their steak was overcooked. And so it's just, gearing that conversation and being able to bring focus, because we probably do care that steak was overcooked, but now is not the time that we need to talk about that. So we have to be able to take some of these things offline. And I think we found that people really wanted to get into deep into those, what some people will consider rabbit hole conversations.
Excellent, Nicole. And with that, we're at the end of this episode. I wanted to thank you so much for your experience shares and your commentary. I think this was one of my most fun episodes. So thank you. And I think our viewers will also walk away with a lot of nuggets of wisdom, hopefully, that they can apply right away in their business. So thank you again.
Thanks. It was a pleasure speaking with you, Nitin. Thank you.
Thank you.